Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learned in progression from it to the full product? Camera work. In my prelim, I used very basic shots on a tripod. In the prelim, I used the over-the-shoulder shot for all dialogue in the scene, and as I have no dialogue in my opening scene, I did not continue to use this shot. However, I have continued to practice other shots, for example, the mid shot. In my prelim, I used this shot when Owen was walking towards his bedroom. I then repeated this shot at the end of the opening scene with Dan and Jake on the sofa in my opening scene. From my prelim, I have learned that to film someone walking, it's ideal to use a track and dolly. So for my opening scene, when filming someone walking, I didn't use the technique of tracking. Editing techniques. The editing was definitely the main weakness of my opening scene, as in all fairness, I'd never actually done anything before. I feel that the main reason it was so poor is because I didn't think about using all the transitions I could have used. And this was also evident in my prelim. For example, in my opening scene, I originally tried to use lots of wipes to make it look as though the camera was moving from one shot to the next. However, because I had some shots which weren't, I could not do this fully. In my prelim, I also actually had a continuity error, which was when the boy walked into the dark room and then the next shot was him in a light room. Due to a good eye for detail, I had no continuity errors in my final opening scene. On the prelim, I did not have access to Adobe Premiere. However, I just had to settle for using iMovie, and this wasn't actually great, but it did the job for the prelim. So planning. Due to me working on a group of my own and joining the course late, I found myself rushing a lot of the tasks in the prelim. For example, I did the prop list, shot list and script all in the same evening. I didn't even complete any storyboards. The lack of storyboards was a huge error of mine, as I now know that if you don't have any storyboards, you have little understanding of what your film's going to look like. I also feel that I should have spent way longer planning my prelim, and I believe that the outcome would have been better if I'd spent more time on pre-production of the prelim. With the film opening, however, I spent lots of time carefully constructing the script, shot list and storyboards. I also spent a lot of time thinking about props and costume and what ones would be suitable for my character specifically, whereas this barely even crossed my mind on the prelim. I had a lot more time for my main opening, which meant that I could spend a lot more time on important aspects of the product. For example, when researching other film openings and the structure of specific openings, I could write down all aspects I felt were key to the narrative and then make a presentation of all these ideas. This gave me an overview of the film openings and could then identify the conventions of specific genres. I evidently did no research into my prelim, and I feel that I've now successfully learned how to research important aspects of film openings. So, understanding film openings. As I began to talk about previously, I have now a much better understanding of film genres and conventions. I also have learned that there are subgenres, for example, a romantic comedy or a comedy action film. In the prelim, I had very little understanding of film genres, and I didn't even start to look into what genre I wanted my prelim to represent. I now know that genres often have certain shooting and editing techniques, lighting and sound aspects that are all common of the genre. For example, there is often fast cut editing in action films and low-key lighting in horror films. Looking back at my preliminary task, I feel that I didn't consider genre of the film enough, and I could have put more effort into lighting and sound, and this may make it present at least one genre. GarageBand. In the prelim, I did not have any non-diegetic sound, which may have been why I was so weak. I feel that I should have spent more time thinking about about sound for the prelim. However, for the opening scene, I could have spent more time thinking about the diegetic noises. For example, dialogue. In the opening scene that I've created, I used GarageBand for Apple software, and I created a song of this. I feel that the film opening that I created was hugely benefited by having a song over the top. Looking back on it, I definitely should have put more music into the prelim, however, and at the time I actually didn't have a clue how to use GarageBand. I have learned that to insert loops to GarageBand, how to do this, and also how to chop up and slow down tracks within the program. Downloading fonts. When I was making the prelim, I just used the standard font that came with the program, which did the job for the prelim. However, it did look very unprofessional. It later occurred to me that you can download fonts from the internet. I used using a website called DaFont. On this website, I could pick up and choose a font that would correctly fit in with my opening scene and genre of comedy, action, thriller. This way you can choose a font that will illustrate to the audience what the genre is and therefore raise their expectations of the film. Now I'd be able to recognise the importance of the font and how even the small changes in a font can suggest a very different subgenre or even genre.